to score under the post. JJ Williams. The Lions leap in the air.
These are the days that you'd never believe will come again.
To win for a Lion, for the Lions in a test match, is the ultimate.
Guscott drop! It's there! Jerry Guscott did go for the drop goal!
As we build up to the 2021 British and Irish Lions Tour of South Africa, I will be speaking to the great and the good of Lions Tours past to get their unique insight into why the Lions hold such a special place in the hearts and minds of most rugby players and supporters. And look, where else would you start other than the man who has been dubbed Mr. Lions, having gone on 2 tours as a player, 5 tours as a coach, 4 of which were as head coach. I am, of course, talking about the great Sir Ian McGeechan. Hello, Geech.
Morrow, great to speak to you.
Look, before we go into your career and things like that, I want to know this. I want you to tell us, put yourself back into the shoes of McGeechan Jr. as a schoolboy player, or maybe just starting club rugby. Now, kids, teenagers today, they know lots about the Lions because they've got the internet, they've got merchandising, they've got 24-hour media, they've got YouTube, all these things there. When you were around, there were only 3 channels on TV for a start off, no internet and phone boxes. So, what was the aura, what was your feeling about that, about the Lions, before you got anywhere near it?
I think the first real interest and closeness to the Lions was actually the 71 tour to New Zealand with Barry John and Gareth Edwards and that great side that and I was playing cricket at the time pretty seriously, and I remember, people used to have to check scores. We remember the milkman coming round and just checking what the Lions score was, or we went to the cricket change and we were talking about it because it had been on radio, and then you got a summary film of it flown over whatever. And you'd see something on SportsView or whatever it was at the time on a Wednesday evening. So you'd then look forward to it. But a lot of it was, that's the first time really I felt as though there was a closeness and a real interest and wanting to know what the next score was on the Lions tour, because I think that was an outstanding tour. Calvin James way ahead of his time, and just particularly a great backline that, I think Willie John admitted they stood up to New Zealand up front and allowed the backs to play behind with some brilliance that won them the series.
Well, look, it's only 3 years later, 74, when you're first selected as a player. Talk me through the process of how you found out, what your thoughts were before, because presumably there were mooted selections in various papers. Were you in those? Were you in the first team? Were you in the squad? Were you a bolter? Were you nowhere near? How did it all come about?
No, I would say no. I wasn't one that was generally talked about as a Lions player. I'd had my second season of international rugby, so I was fairly late into it. I was 25, 26 before I got a first cap with Scotland. And the first, I think, and only time, I think we'd played Ireland in Dublin and I was flying back to Leeds, and I was reading the Sunday Times, and there was a venerable Sunday Times reporter, Vivian Jenkins, and he'd made comments. They didn't pick squads in those days. They just talked about players who'd had good 5 Nations, as it was. And my name was mentioned amongst the centres, about 5 or 6 centres that were discussed. And that's the first time, probably really the only time prior to the tour, that there was any indication that I was even in people's thoughts.
How did you find out you were picked?
A letter from Beirut, British Isles Rugby Union team. And it was those initials on the envelope. and on the letterhead. And I think it was Bob Wayhill who was involved then, like he was, I think, when you were involved.
Yes.
And it was inviting me to go on tour with the Lions.
No indication of anyone else. Who else was picked?
No.
You had to wait for that elsewhere, okay?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
That particular time, the political situation in South Africa, apartheid, the knowledge of apartheid, the opposition to it was growing, was being more organised and so on. What were your considerations in relation to that and the reaction of, well, I imagine educational bodies might be slightly different to other bodies on that?
Yeah, Leeds City Council weren't, Labour Council, they weren't in favour of it. But I think a special quorum, my headmaster knew the head of education, the director of education. So I think a small quorum was selected from the committee that passed my ability to go. Obviously, they said they couldn't pay me. So I had to make the choice on that basis. And I just felt at the time, it was fairly hectic that I wanted to see for myself, and if we're going to make a difference, was it going to be better that the Lions were in South Africa highlighting it, or do you ignore it? And I, at the time, I felt that, sport, it was, the Lions was something I never anticipated going on, and that I'd like to go to South Africa and really see for myself what the whole environment was like.
What do you think you achieved on the tour, on and off the field?
Well, it was an incredible tour. When we all met up, I was like a little boy in a sweetie shop when we walked into the hotel. I think the first two people I saw were Gareth Edwards and Willie John McBride, and you're thinking, crikey, I've got 4 months now with these players. Sid Miller was a good coach. I really was just excited about being involved and just knowing you're playing with players that you'd admired from '71 and that were great players and just wanted to play rugby as a Lion. I suppose by then, I really, having been involved in international rugby, then you really appreciate, I think, being able to be selected for the Lions out of the top group of international players.
Can you describe this to me? I'll give my own reflection on it, but the Lions badge is iconic. It is beautiful. When you get it embroidered and braided in the little materials that you get on the tour shirts and on the blazers, and you put that on for the first time, can you remember what you thought?
So putting the blazer on was pretty special. You stood in front of the mirror and then, all you're hoping is, crack, I don't want to get injured in training before I actually put the jersey on. The other interesting thing, Brian, was the jersey. There was only 6 sets of jerseys to last 4 months. Right. So they were going in the wash. And the only new jersey I got to keep was the jersey I wore in the first test.
Let's fast forward to 89, 10 years or 15 years later. You retire as a player and you're selected to coach the Lions in Australia. And that's only a year, I think, after you got the Scotland head coach. Is that right? Just a year? Or
yeah.
How did that all come about? Were you sounded out before, during? Who was a selection process for that particular role?
No, I was approached in the summer before, 88, by the Scottish representative on the Lions committee, who'd said, if Clive Rowlands asked you to coach the Lions, what would your answer be? So I was a bit taken aback, to say the least. I spoke to Judy, my wife, and said, I've just had a phone call about potentially coaching the Lions. What do you think? So we talked it through, and she was a full-time student. She was doing a 4-year degree at Leeds, at the university at the time, with 2 small children. So it was a big call. But she just said, yeah, you've got to go for it. And then Clive rang me, Clive Rowlands, who was brilliant. And Clive just said, look, I've watched the Scottish backs for the last 3 years and Scotland's attacking rugby. And he said, I want that approach for the Lions. I was still assistant coach when I was actually asked. I'd just been appointed head coach, but I actually hadn't done anything with Scotland at that point.
Lions selections are, hugely, not necessarily divisive, but everyone has their own opinion. Usually it falls down on national lines, and why wouldn't it? Because everyone has their own prejudices and so on. But you have been through several incarnations of a selection committee. So can you tell us, what they've ranged from and to, and why certain systems are better than others, in your opinion?
It was always whoever was chairman of the Lions committee determined how the Lions was put together. So in 1993, 4 years later, I was sent a letter saying, and I think it went to all 4 national coaches, the Lions tour is coming up. Do you want to apply for the head coach? So you had to do a written response back, and then there were interviews. And we had at the East India Club in London. So we had an interview. The full Lions committee was there. They must have spoken to all 4 coaches, whoever. I don't know who the other letters went to. Well, I know Dick Best was obviously was one that got a letter as well. And then after that, I was offered the position, and Dick had been offered the position of assistant coach. And when we came to selection, there was a committee of about 9.
You were 9, and then you had the coaches as well. So that was about 12 people having an input?
Probably, yeah. All I remember is a lot of people around the... And then
it makes a lot more sense to me now, Geach, that selection process. when I see what came out of the other end, it makes a great deal of more sense. Because I've always thought, surely the message, you're in charge. You take input from other people, but it's your neck. You're making the decisions. So I would have thought, right, I'll listen to you all. But when it comes down to it, and if all say 3-4 are against me, I have to take it seriously. But apart from that, we'll have to agree every position. But apart from that, we're not going to go much further than these 4 walls.
Yeah, well, you're right. I mean, there was players there that were voted on that weren't my first choice. Put it that way. So when Fran Cotton asked me in '97, and again, change again, Fran as manager it was his choice. He picked the coach. So Fran just rang me up and said, did I fancy coaching the Lions again? Which I said yes, because I want to get, and I said, Fran, 2 conditions. I said, I want Jim Telfer as forwards coach, and I want you, me and Jim to pick the squad. I said, if we're going to fail, I want to fail with the players that we've chosen, not that somebody else has chosen.
With the first tour of the professional era, how did that differ in relation to the 89 and the 93 tours to Australia and New Zealand because of professionalism, if at all?
Yeah, the big difference, Brian, was they gave me the ability to go to South Africa the summer before and watch the Test series with New Zealand. And whilst I was out there, I spent a week with the All Blacks, their training, talking to them, Sean Fitzpatrick, the players. They were good, very good. And they said certain things. I was asking them, because I hadn't been to South Africa since I was there as a player. And the biggest thing they said is have control of everything. Your training gear, your hotels, your travel, it's all your side. You keep control of everything. And that's what we did. We took all our own kit out. We took 2 lots of kit out, 2 scrummaging machines with 2 articulated lorries travelling between training so that there was always the right kit at the next venue. Mm-hmm. And also, having watched them live, I could see the game that we were going to have to play if we wanted to win the Test series, because that was the first Test series New Zealand had ever won in South Africa. Mm-hmm. So talking to them was great about, what it felt and what it needed. So all that, allowed then me to put together, and I spoke to Jim about it a lot and Fran, of the type of game, the type of player we had to look for. And the biggest one was players with open minds that can actually be prepared to adapt and change and work off each other, really. And if we had that, then cumulatively we'd start to evolve a game that I felt we could put together that would give us a chance in the Test series. To be honest, Brian, I'd learnt a lot that I kept from '89 in the conversations with players. That just asking, or there were opinions of things that as coach, you haven't got all the answers. I learnt that really strongly in '89, that actually all the answers were in the group. As long as I was prepared, and Roger, we'd listen and we'd discuss it, but we knew where we'd got to be. And one of the things I put on the back burner was some of the things I wanted to do with the backs, because actually I knew the winning was somewhere else in it. And having that conversation again, I felt we had to have that in '97 for everybody really to be playing a game that they all collectively understood.
Why Martin Johnson? Because he wasn't yet England captain.
No, I think a Lions captain has to have the respect of the players first and foremost. And I was coaching at Northampton at the time. He was at Leicester, so there were some big head-to-heads, East Midland derbies. And when you're there, you see the presence Jono had on the field, even though he wasn't captain, not just with his own team, but with the opposition as well. He had an impact. And I spoke to Dino about him. And I said, look, I know he wasn't even captain of Leicester at the time. I said, look, I've got a feeling I just want Jono, to be captain, because I think he's the one player, it's second row and it's the heart of where we're going to have to be to beat South Africa. But he's a player that I think everybody respects. How would he take to it? And he'd accelerated in '93 when he came over and got into the Test team. Dino said no. He said he'll be good. And then that's what I did say to Jim and Fran. Look, I said, psychologically, the first toss of the coin at first Test, the South African captain is going to have to look up to the Lions captain physically. And I just felt his presence and the way other players reacted to him was what we needed.
This is your Everest, boys. Very few ever get a chance in rugby terms to get for Everest, the top of Everest. You have the chance today. Being picked is the easy bit. To win for a Lion, for the Lions in a Test match, is the ultimate. But you'll not do it unless you put your bodies on the line. Every one jack of you for 80 minutes. Defeat doesn't worry me. I've had it often, and so have you. It's performance that matters. If you put in the performance, you'll get what you deserve. No luck attached to it. If you don't put it in, if you're not honest, then we're second raters. They don't rate us. They don't respect us. They don't respect you. They don't rate you.
Geach, I'm sure you remember that you were there. Everyone who loves rugby has probably heard that speech of Jim Telfer. Major role to play on that tour. One of my regrets is actually never having been coached by him. It would have been an interesting dynamic, I think. That's all I would say. If the coaching ticket changed between you and the way you did things, but how much did he bring to you and the Lions' success, and why?
I think we just got on right from day one, really. I was lucky. When I came through into international coaching, again, I didn't anticipate it at all. There was Derek Grant, who became Scotland head coach, and I became assistant. And Jim had just finished. He'd just come back from the '83 Lions. And they were two fantastic mentors because we just taught rugby in a way. They're both back row players. I played most of my rugby at halfback. We talked a lot about that decision making, that play through the back row and the contact area and so on. And some of the conversations we had were fantastic. I mean, I learned such a lot. But we saw rugby in a similar way. I know we approached it differently, and we were two different characters, but actually we knew what we wanted as outcomes of breakdown work and but also having spoken to the All Blacks knew just what we had to do up front, not to beat South Africa, but to get equality, to take away from them a strength that they perceived they had. And if we could do that, we could then play rugby in other areas and it would be a different test series. I mean, I said that all the time. And if we were within a score with 20 minutes to go in the test matches, I felt we would. And I said that to the players, that I felt we would win. And Jim and I just evolved. So, he'd be working at breakdown the set piece and all about just getting this ability to stay in the game and not lose control. And he was brilliant with the players.
I tell you what's interesting, with the Springboks in particular, there's not much different, from then till now and going on as far as I can see in the future. Because if you don't front up front, that's it. I know that's the case in lots of games, but uniquely with South Africa, you simply have to do that. Because they are the one side, even bar New Zealand, who can and will overwhelm you. Because I feel they feed off insecurity, physical insecurity and so on. And it emboldens them in a way which it doesn't for any other team. And were you aware of that then?
Yes. And it hit me when I watched the series the year before. Mm-hmm. I knew you could see it firsthand. And actually, the first thing I did when we met as a squad, I just said to Jim, I want to show the last minute of the last test with the All Blacks because it was 1 metre from the All Blacks line and eventually they're pummeled and South Africa knock on and the final whistle goes and some of the greatest All Blacks, not one of them is on their feet. They are all off their feet, either on their knees or on their backs, because they've nothing else to give. And I just said to the players, you at some point will have to go through that if you want to win this series. And it was Sean Fitzpatrick, Zinzambro. You're looking at some of their, best ever rated players, had absolutely nothing else to give to win the series.
So you win the first test. I'll go on to your speech, another iconic speech in a second. But you had this thing, the 89 team is the only Lions team, I believe, to have lost the first test and then won a series. Now, how different is it that week, having lost or won?
It's tough. If you win, I think you just want to keep everything in line and not overdo things and keep it simple and straightforward. The great thing in 97 was the non-test group were playing fantastic rugby. And one thing that always hit home to me was after the first test, we were going to a Mexican restaurant for dinner at about 9 o'clock at night or late kickoffs. And Martin Johnson, he stands up in the bus, and apparently it was Scott Gibbs that told him, but he said to the test players, he said, I want everybody on the bus, test team, 9:30, because you've got to hold the bags. There's a Lions team playing on Tuesday night in Orange Free State. And so whatever you do tonight, on the bus, 9:30, no question. And it was that sort of thing. It wasn't a midweek team. It was a Lions team that just kept going on the field. And I think that when we lost in 89...
Well, we got hammered, actually. We got hammered.
Yeah. And you were back to up front and getting control. You know, Nick Farr-Jones, Matt Liner were incredible that first test. And I think it came out of conversations, and you were probably in one of them, that we had to make sure that if whatever ball Nick Farr-Jones got, he couldn't do a lot with. Mm-hmm. And the only way we were going to do that, you know, Teague was fit again, which was quite important. Wade Dooley, you know, came in. We just made changes which were to say, right, we're actually going to try and dominate possession and take away their perceived strength, which is, you know, to me was the halfbacks and their ability to free up the way they played. I know I did go over the top a little bit with Robert Jones beforehand, but
you couldn't predict how Nick Farr-Jones would react to that simple act of standing on the foot. Look, just get this out of the way. What's your approach to having to tell someone you're out of the team? Say a Norster. You know, Norster was an iconic figure with the Welsh players, very significant psychologically. I know that the Welsh players didn't take it well in 89 when he was down, but, you know, Cutler was 5 inches taller and a significant presence. What do you do? Is it a standard speech or...?
No, it was just that thinking. I talked about having to dominate their front five, and Bob Norster was probably the most skillful second row that you had, but he wasn't the most physical. And I said, look, we've just got to have that physical edge about us up front, and put the biggest men in. So I wasn't saying you're not playing well or you're not good enough. It was simply we had to play differently to get ourselves back into the series and try and do something that was slightly different, which needed that physicality about it and that edge about it that, you know, wasn't a natural part of his game.
We've proved that the lion has claws and has teeth. We've wounded a springbok. When an animal is wounded, it returns in frenzy. It doesn't think. It fights for its very existence. The lion waits. And at the right point, it goes for the jugular. And the life disappears. Today, every second of that game, we've talked about what they're going to do or everybody else has. We go for the jugular. Every tackle, every pass, every kick is saying, you're dying. Your hopes of living in this test series are going.
You've won the first test in 97. That speech, before the second test, 1997, has gone down in Lions and sporting folklore. Look, how did you prepare for that? What you were going to say, when you were going to say it, in what tone, in what manner?
I think my own mind went back to 1974 and the third test in Pretoria. In Port Elizabeth, where we'd won 2, and if we won in Port Elizabeth, we'd won the series. And that remains the hardest game of rugby I ever played in my career. And the first 40th or the first 38 minutes, we hardly got out of our half. And this was, you know, a Lions pack that had dominated South Africa. They had a team talk by Gary Player before they came out. And we just had this wall of physicality that just kept coming at us at a different level. And I had that in the back of my mind that I just want the players to understand what's coming. Here's South Africa now fighting for their lives in a test series. And I kept going back to thinking what it had been like. Dick Milliken, my centre partner, we talked about it years afterwards, that there wasn't a lot of talk on the field in that Lions team in that first half. All it was action and commitment. And sometimes we looked at one another to just make sure, or there'd be a point, or their eyes going one way to go into the next position, or to put you in a position where you could do something just to stop them scoring. We weren't winning it, but one thing we weren't losing it.
Yep.
And it was that really. I went for a long walk in the morning and just tried to get my head around, how I wanted to try and say it because I wanted the players to understand that, but actually just stay in the game because they would get opportunities in that last 15, 20 minutes.
And who did it turn out to be the saviour again? The Mr. Guscott. It would be Guscott, wouldn't
Yes.
It would just have to be him. But what a brilliant player. As tense as you can get in a Test match. Where will that rank in your memories?
Yeah, high, very, very high indeed. Just a great feeling of the team that had been under the cosh didn't give anything away when they were, and actually came back and won it. It was a bit like that. I always pair that with the third Test in Australia, where I'd had a meeting beforehand with Bob Templeton. The Aussie press were absolutely having a real go at us, and various things with Rob Jones and Nick Farr-Jones, and just had a conversation with Bob, and he knew that I knew how we could beat Australia, but we both agreed we'd not raise the temperature too much. Bob was good, and he knew it, and he knew we weren't going to change.
Well, he came to Quins and coached Quins for a couple of years when I was there, and I remember chatting to him about this, and he said to me, I remember we had a fucking meeting and we wanted to go on about this. I said, no, don't talk this, don't mention that, it looks bad, it looks weak. He said he got outvoted, he went in the press, and of course, when Cutler's coming out, he's 6'10", weighs 19 stone, say, I'm afraid for my life in the line-out. What do you think as an opposition player? Think, oh, marvellous. Absolutely marvellous.
The last couple of days I've been reading a book about previous, I forget the guy who wrote it, which covers the 93 tour, the 83 tour, and it just came across as a considerable kind of tour that was quite unhappy, and they seemed to run out of players. So it was all based on these facts that I set the tour up like it's been set up. I passionately believe behind the scenes this is one of the happiest Lions trips has been in terms of players getting on, coaches getting on, management getting on. Let's
just skip over the 2005 experience quickly. It was a special tour in this sense, in that the Lions never looked like getting anywhere near in any Test at all. Now, I can't think in any of your other coaching incarnations with the Lions that occurred. There was always a possibility. 1993, arguable, could have maybe won the first Test if that decision had gone a different way. Frank Bunce, I'd come down with a ball. Dino, did he handle it? Did he not? What was it like going through, a significant losing experience? I mean, not worse still, not getting anywhere near.
It was different. I think Clive probably had to do what he did. But the game then was nearly, 10 years old professionally. And what he tried to do was put a Test team together early on in the tour and just give that team chance to work together. I agreed to go on because I know to go on the tour because he asked if I'd the midweek team. And I said, yes, because if the midweek team's right, then the Test team is right.
Yep.
And what I wanted to do was give as much as I could to having the Test team in the midweek team, in the best frame of mind. We changed one or two things because I asked Clive, I said, look, I want to take the midweek team down a day early and stay in the areas and go out for a drink at night. But Clive kept the others, they flew in, watched and flew out again. So they only had these certain hotels. So I think professionally, it probably had to be tried. I think what it proved is the Lions is a different challenge, and you have to try and give every player every opportunity to think that he's got the chance of putting a Test jersey on. And Bill Beaumont, who was manager on that tour, he and I we had a day together, went off Waiheke Island or somewhere and just talked through all the lessons learned. And, I just said, Bill, 2009, we've got to try and make sure that the players feel that they've got every opportunity. I didn't anticipate they were going to ask me to coach again, to be honest.
What made you go back? What made you go back as head coach?
Because I wanted to try and leave the Lions in a place where I felt they should be. Mm-hmm. I wanted players to feel the same way about the Lions that I felt as a player and as a coach, and that, you know, other groups of players before have felt. And so, you know, I did the same. I was out a year early. I got Gats involved. You know, Gats and I by that time had known each other for 10 years, and he's got a great understanding of players and people as well. And we did the same. The coaches picked the squad. We didn't vote on anything. We discussed everything. And what we were looking for was, you know, I've kept saying not necessarily the best players, but the best players for a Lions tour. And that makes good people. You can't get away from the fact that attitude and how you approach it, how you come to terms with disappointment, if you're not in the test team, all the other bits that are so different on a Lions tour. And I wanted just one last go to say, look, I want to try and just put out there what I really genuinely believed players who were putting a Lions jersey on in 2009 had the opportunity to feel.
The fact that there's a lot less people, I suppose, than what I've been used to is the best thing about it. I think everyone's on the pitch at the same time. Everyone's in and around the gym at the same time. Everyone's in and around the team room at the same time. And that's harder with a bigger group, with a small, intimate group like we have. That's been happening, and it's, definitely, I think there's a lot of good friendships being made, a lot of characters emerging already. And that's going to be a big thing for us. I mean, you know, as I said a week ago, the talent is there in the group, the coaching is there in the group, no doubt about it. It's us becoming a team, and I think last week was a good step towards that.
Paul O'Connell as captain, a reflection of the job that Jono had done, or just fulfilling those criteria, or a combination of both, probably?
Yeah, a bit both. I was really impressed with him in 2005. He had a natural presence. He'd got respect of the players.
He wasn't captain, though, wasn't he? He wasn't captain of Ireland.
No, Brian O'Driscoll was. But, you know, Brian had a lot of pressure in New Zealand. He got injured in that test match. And I wanted him to actually just be on a Lions tour, enjoy it, and not have that responsibility. Mm-hmm. And that Paul O'Connell, for me, again, front five, respected by all the players. And I knew Brian O'Driscoll anyway, as a natural leader, would just be great support for him, as he was for Brian in the Irish team. One reason why Irish rugby changed was that group of players who supported each other so closely. And actually, I rang Brian before any announcements to say that, you know, I was picking Paul O'Connell as captain. And he was over the moon. He wanted to ring him up and congratulate him. I said,
not yet.
For goodness sake, don't do it yet. I haven't told him. You know, so.
Put a bet on first. No. Yeah, right.
So, yeah, and he was great on the tour. And I did, you know, well, hopefully, in the end, it's only players will know, can say whether, you know, they feel that there was, you know, as good a Lions environment there as could be.
You lose the opening test match, very close again, 26-21. I remember the scrum was, struggling a bit. Again, you've got to deal with that. What were your thoughts, having come out on other Lions tours, on the positive and negative side? So nothing's unfamiliar for you, but did you think it was eminently able to be turned around?
Yeah, I think... You know, we were probably a bit lightweight again in certain positions, and we made some changes. Phil Vickery had got on the wrong side of the referee. I don't know why, and I think some of that was just a viewpoint from a referee, to be honest. But once a referee sees it one way, you know, and I just said to Gats after, we've got to change Vicks because, you know, we've got to change what the referee thinks he's looking at.
Yeah.
And so we made those changes. In the second test, I think Gats and I both felt we should have picked Simon Shaw ahead of Alan Wynne-Jones at the time, actually, who was just coming on to, the international, the test match scene. And Shawsey, to me, still remains one of the most underrated second rows.
Completely.
He was unbelievable, the second and third tests. He just, Victor Matfield, they just, suddenly they were not a threat. The line-out, everything looked different. And Shawsey had 2 unbelievable test matches. And so we knew we'd probably made, again, a selection error by not just putting that power in from the word go.
Well, I mean, it might have been different if Berger had been sent off when he should have been, for gouging. That was, I mean, it was. I remember this distinctly because I'd gone over to Ireland to speak at a Carphone Warehouse sort of weekend, which was to do with the Lions, and so we watched the test in a pub with their employees. It was a good day. It was a good earn actually, and I remember thinking at the time, how is that not a sending off? But then, the last play of the game with Ronan O'Gara. Now, there's nothing personal, but I remember saying in the debriefing afterwards to the person, of all the things he could have done, there was one thing that he should not have done, and that's what he did. He could have done anything else, and it'd probably been okay, but he didn't. You get the penalty, and what happens? What were your thoughts at the instant time as the ball went over, and then trying to deal with the dressing room in losing in that way?
Yeah, it's still probably the most physical test match I think I've ever seen. That second test in Pretoria was an unbelievable game of rugby. And we played some great rugby that day. I mean, the same in the first test. I mean, it was the rugby we were playing was probably as good in test matches as it had been for a while. So we were ahead. They came back. We lost both props and both centres. So suddenly, it was make-up time as Stephen Jones kicked well that day. And we got back to 25 all. And I think, we all felt that with the changes on the field and everything else, just let's take the draw and go for broke in the third test. So when the penalty was called, then I'm thinking that's all I'm thinking. He's going to kick this from 10 metres inside his own half on a ground he knows well. So it was a big disappointment. And I'd said to the players beforehand, I've never seen Simon Shaw so upset at all. And the players, you're looking at a group of players who've given absolutely everything for a jersey and have come out of it, just 3 points the wrong side of a result. And I'd said to them before the game, it's not the jersey they put on, it's the jersey you take off that you remember. And I'm looking at them all in that dressing room. It's probably the lowest I think I've ever felt in a dressing room that day.
They've said there's nothing to play for. It's a dead series. Mind you what Gats said on Wednesday. I think we've everything to play for. Because today will determine what we are. It will say everything about us.
There is business to attend to. Whether you want to be there, don't want to be there, whether your innate competitiveness demands that you put things right or whatever, you've got to play that fixture. How do you approach that week?
Well, we made 9 changes, I think, with all the injuries. When I spoke to the players on the Sunday morning, I just said have a break. The last thing I think we could have done or should have done was then have a big session and a big review, on the Sunday morning or the Monday morning. So there was 2 things on offer. I said, you can go on safari for 2 days, or the family's out, or you can go back to Joburg and just have 2 days off, play golf, do whatever you like. And I said, but I want you back on the field on Wednesday morning, ready to win a test match. Because I said, if we pass this Lions jersey on, it has to be a winning jersey, so that the next group that take it up are actually putting a winning Lions jersey on. And The training on the Wednesday and the Thursday was quite incredible. I kept the film of that, the videos of it, because it was quite incredible. It was quick. It was accurate. We didn't change anything. We knew exactly what we had to do. And I was looking at a team playing at such a pace with accuracy. And this is with 8-9 changes in it. And you then to, leave the Lions jersey in the best place possible for the next group to pick up.
Well, funnily enough, you've come to the conclusion I was going to draw you towards, because it is my definite feeling as well that the temporary custodianship is yours, but when your time is in the sun, it's your responsibility, and it's in your own hands as much as you can make it, to make sure that your custodianship is one that's memorable. And I think if I have to pick anything out for the enduring, one of the reasons for the enduring legacy is that feeling I feel and I hope persists.
Think back to 2009. We didn't play any of the South African players in the lead up to the test match, and so we'd run and played pretty well and had won those lead up matches, and we probably went into the first test reasonably confident from where we were, and then all of a sudden we came up against the test players in that first test, and we got a little bit of a hurry up in terms of the physicality that they brought. And looking the first half of that first test against South Africa, we made changes in the second half and got back into the game. And in the second test, we made changes in our type 5, and it was a close encounter. So, look, I've definitely learned from that experience.
We've got a 37-man squad. I've read your thoughts, prior to that and the selection and so on. Everyone can argue about individual players. Is there anyone that you think, given your joker card, you might have played?
One thing the selection did for me was actually show how many good players we've got around in the Northern Hemisphere at the moment, in the 4 countries. And it's more, you could make an argument for 7 or 8 players who haven't been picked that you cannot make an argument against anyone who has. Mm-hmm. Because I think I can see the logic in the selection. I can see why players are there. And, I think it's a good, and I think Gats said well balanced, and I think he knows, and you said it earlier, Brian, you can't get away from the physicality that you've got to match it, not necessarily beat them there, but actually play a game that is slightly different to one that they expect. And, I don't know if you feel the same. I just think Lions rugby is so personal to that group. It's never repeated. Nobody else plays. No, I was going to say they will define their own version of this. They will, yes. And I think that squad has got the ability to do it in different ways. So, yes, you can argue for players who are not in it, but equally, there isn't any strong reason you could give for any of those players not being in it.
Just one more on the squad itself. Alan Wynne-Jones, to many people's eyes, standout captain in terms of what he's achieved and so on. One of the things that always impressed me about Finlay Calder, he was the first captain who had ever said to me, if I don't think I'm playing well enough, I won't play. I won't pick myself. And he meant it. Like a lot of the other mad things that he meant as well, like fighting in the First World War and things like strange things. But you can't have a captain who is not going to make the test team, can you?
I don't think so. No.
Personally, no, I'm not saying that Alan Wynne-Jones won't. I think he will. And I think he's the right one,
no, I think he's Brian. I think he's the standout choice for captain. It was the only way. The way the Six Nations went, the way Wales went, he's got you back to the respect that a captain or a player needs from the other 3 countries. Mm-hmm. And I think he has that. There is no question that, and his own work rate, his effort, his off the field behaviour, attitude, everything about him is what you need for a Lions captain.
And he'll have the same on the Toyn Coss as well, that you said that Jono and and Finlay and other people had.
Yeah, but Finlay did say to Clive and I after that first test, "Don't pick me."
Good job, Andy Robinson. It's never fit, isn't it? Really. But this is the last one on this particular one. It's going to be COVID managed. You can't do anything about it. No one wants it to be, but they are. It does make it more problematic in lots of ways. We know that. But is anything specific might hurt the Lions because of the way in which they'll have to comport themselves due to these restrictions?
I think it's already had an impact on selection. I think they have definitely looked at attitude and approach of players in how they react to that disappointment or the pressure of not being able to do certain things or whatever. And because I think, to me, that is so important this time, that the off-the-field attitude and approach is going to have to be so good from everybody collectively. And that's why I think probably, I mean, I don't know, that there will have been a lot of conversations between the coaches about how a player approaches different things away from the rugby field.
See, normally, in a squad of 30-odd, you can find a way not to be around people you don't get on with because there's lots of things to do. But you can't. There's enough time when you're forced to be together, just in terms of travelling, for people to get on your nerves and you to get on other people's nerves. I just think with the COVID stuff, there'll be no hiding place. You can't just slip out around the corner with 3 or 4 of you and just let steam off for 10 minutes. Having a private rant, and then everyone comes back and they're fine. This is the thing for me. All the intensity of it is going to be overwhelming in terms of the experiences, how they're magnified because of those restrictions.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I think that's where I think Gats will probably be thinking about the things he can do. Can they go shark, fishing, swimming, whatever, as a bubble? Can they play golf as a bubble? I think the thing they'll miss is the contact with South Africans. Yeah. And you can't get away from that. But I think you're right, that strength of being in the bubble means that what they do has got to be so well defined that they don't underestimate how well they've got their behaviour has got to be to actually stop any, particularly with South Africa being, in such a strong pandemic at the moment.
Well, Sir Ian McGeechan, we could, I don't know about you, I could talk for a long time, but that's all we do have time for. Can I just say, it's always a pleasure to speak to you, memories, insight and so on into this Lions story. And of course, people listening, you can get Ian's wider thoughts on all rugby things in the Sunday Telegraph, and there'll be a link to his columns in the episode description here. Just remains for me to say to Mr. Lyons himself, thank you very much, sir. It was a pleasure.
Brian, thank you. Pleasure this end as well, as always.